I always thought buying a lake cabin was supposed to buy you peace. You know, those slow sunrises, quiet coffee on the porch neighbors who just wave and go on with their day, nothing more. Turns out what I really bought was a front row seat to the craziest slow motion HOA coup you could ever imagine, run by a bunch of clipboard warriors who took themselves way too seriously. And here's the wild part. One of them literally sold my house right out from under me and I never even listed it. Yeah, let that sink in. Imagine waking up and there's a for sale sign on your lawn. Total strangers wandering your porch, measuring steps, planning their new deck, and you're just standing there wondering if you missed some massive memo. If that sounds impossible, just wait, because what happened next goes even deeper. Ever watched your sense of peace get auctioned off online? Tell me what you would have done. Just 2 years ago, if you'd told me I'd end up at war with a neighborhood committee president, I would have laughed and poured another coffee, told you HOA drama happened to other people. Back then, I was busy surviving the kind of divorce you don't talk about at dinner parties. My ex-wife Danielle was a master at turning words into daggers. You just never fight for anything, Alex, she told me, bags packed by the door right in front of our couple's therapist. You're like a paper towel in a hurricane. I didn't argue. Just watched her leave, let her words stick like gum on my shoe. She wasn't wrong, honestly. I was always the guy who avoided confrontation, let my old landlord hike the rent without so much as a peep, because I'd rather have peace than fairness. But sometimes peace is just a different kind of prison when you're too afraid to push back. So there I was, licking my wounds at this weather-beaten lake cabin, peeling trim and a crooked welcome mat, but inside everything was mine. The old recliner by the window, a chipped mug from the divorce box that said, "World's okayest man," the bookshelf. I finally filled the photo of me and Dad, fishing reminders that I wasn't always this broken. My whole life I avoided standing up for anything. But out here at least no one expected me to. For a while it worked. My neighbors were friendly enough. Bill, the old widower next door, always out with his ancient retriever, Mrs. Park, waving from her porch with cookies from the bake sale, occasional backyard barbecues, and bad gossip about the previous HOA president who was supposedly allergic to fence paint. I didn't take any of it seriously. Then Sharon Mitchell moved in. She snagged the HOA presidency by default because nobody else wanted the gig, and it was like someone had flipped a switch on the neighborhood. I met her for the first time in my own front yard, still rubbing sleep from my eyes, and there she was in a business blazer with a yellow measuring tape telling me my grass was 2 inches above regulation. I almost laughed out loud, thought it was a prank. "Ma'am, this is a lawn, not Augusta National." She didn't blink. "Rules are rules, Mr. Thompson." And just like that, my peaceful exile started feeling less like a sanctuary and more like a minimum security prison. From there, Sharon got bolder. Security cameras went up on her porch. The HOA bulletin board started growing lists of laminated rules. She became the shadow in the neighborhood, always measuring, always writing, clipboard in hand like a badge. Nobody pushed back. People grumbled, sure, but when I joked in the group chat that she'd be measuring the oxygen next, nobody replied. Not even Bill. That silence was heavier than I expected. It made me nervous, made me start caring about things like mulch and paint shades, just so she'd look elsewhere. And for a while I convinced myself to play along. Don't rock the boat, just keep the peace. But that peace shattered one chilly Tuesday. I was standing on my porch, coffee in hand, thinking how perfect the lake looked when I heard Bill yelling for me to come out. I run over, mug flying, and there it is, a bright red for sale urgent sign stabbed into my lawn facing the street. My name right under it like a billboard advertising my humiliation. Before I could process, I see a middle-aged couple strolling around measuring my porch, talking about replacing it with a wraparound deck. "Excuse me," I manage. "What exactly are you doing?" "Oh, you must be Mr. Thompson," they say. "We're the Johnsons, just paid the deposit with the HOA this morning." My jaw dropped. "Deposit? This isn't for sale," I say, voice shaking. The man just chuckles, says Sharon told them I was relocating to Florida for health reasons. Shows me the contract, waves me off like I'm the crazy one. And the Johnsons, they just stroll through my house like it's already theirs. Snapping photos of my bookshelves, opening the front door, acting like I'm the intruder. "It's covered under Section 14B of the HOA agreement, transitional occupancy," the guy says. I snapped, called Sharon on the spot. "Alex, you violated too many regulations," she said, voice flat as a dial tone. The board took action. "It's not your house anymore." Click. Just like that. I was erased. Neighbors started gathering, watching the spectacle from across the street. I became the lesson, the cautionary tale. Don't mess with Sharon. My stomach twisted, anger bubbling up under all the humiliation. I spent that night in the dark, not eating, just sitting there with Danielle's words echoing in my head. You never fight for anything. But this time, something was different. I wasn't ready to just roll over. I started knocking on doors, asking questions, desperate for anyone to stand with me. But nobody wanted to get involved. Don't bring this to my door, man. I've got kids. Even Bill, who finally let me in, admitted he'd tried fighting Sharon before, ended up with double the fines, threats, code enforcement at his door. I almost sold just to breathe again, he said. Rodriguez, the guy she'd driven out last year, lived in a cramped apartment across town. Showed me photos of his little girl, told me about the porch swing Sharon ordered, removed the endless cycle of citations until they just couldn't keep up. Mrs. Johnson, too old and too tired to fight, lost her house because she planted daisies instead of marigolds. Her whole life in cardboard boxes, now clutching a rocking chair her late husband built. It hit me hard. All these people steamrolled, scattered, silenced. I almost gave up, honestly. Then Mrs. Park called, voice shaking, told me Sharon was coming after her now too. Please don't stop, she begged. That did it. I saw what I'd become if I just let this go, a man packing up his life, explaining to nobody why he couldn't fight back. That night I decided to act, not just for me, but for every neighbor Sharon had bullied into silence. So we fought back, and not in the way Sharon expected. Bill and I mapped out her routes. Rodriguez showed up with duct tape and a grim sense of humor. We made fake Lakeside Modernization Initiative signs, painted a picture of some big scary development coming to town. Printed up press releases full of corporate nonsense, left voicemails as fake investors. The neighborhood panicked, whispers flying, Sharon scrambling. For the first time, she was the one on the defensive, and I felt a weird sense of balance, like the scale had finally tipped. Then came the community meeting, folding chairs and bad coffee in a room that smelled like a high school gym. Sharon strutted in all power and poise, trying to calm the panic, but Ron, one of her own board members, stood up and admitted she'd tricked him into signing approvals. People started shouting questions, demanding answers. Rodriguez held up his daughter's drawing of the porch they lost. Voice cracking. Mrs. Johnson stood with her wedding photo hands shaking, telling everyone how a flower got her evicted. The room cracked open. I admitted to the fake development not to scare people, but to show what it felt like to live in fear. Sharon tried to regain control, but it was over. People finally saw her for what she was. Afterwards, it wasn't celebration, it was just a heavy, stunned quiet, like after a storm when you're not sure what's left standing. Sharon's power was broken. Her house went dark, the lawn wild, neighbors ignoring her at the store. Some people said it was cruel, the mob didn't need pitchforks, just cold shoulders and a little bit of shame. One day I saw her in the grocery line, and she whispered, "I gave order to chaos. Now there's nothing but mud." I told her, "You gave control to fear." She nodded. No fight left in her. Then the police showed up, calm as could be, asking about fake filings, property fraud, all the HOA drama. I told them everything, showed them the binder I'd started collecting, the fines, the emails, all of it. Turns out I wasn't the only one fed up. The neighbors formed a coalition, started rewriting the bylaws, reached out to legal help. Sharon's reign was over, but the scars stayed. Ron handed me a letter Sharon had written months before, proposing appeals and public comments, softer rules, before she snapped and tried to control everything. Maybe she was just scared of losing what little power she had left. In the end, it all came down with one cordless drill. Bill walked up to the HOA office and unscrewed the sign piece by piece. Neighbors filmed it, posted it, and that video spread like wildfire. A local paper called me a whistleblower, though honestly I was just a guy who'd had enough. We threw a Reclaim the Lake Day, kids chalking the sidewalks, banners, flying, neighbors painting over the old bulletin board. Sharon wrote us all apology letters in shaky handwriting. I kept mine in a drawer, not ready to forgive, not willing to forget. And little by little, life came back. Mrs. Johnson sent photos of her new apartment, daisies on the windowsill. Rodriguez built a treehouse for his daughter. Mrs. Park handed me kimchi like always and whispered, "You saved us." But I didn't save anybody. I just reminded people they didn't have to be silent. Now I sit on my porch, coffee in hand, lake shining, house still mine. I keep that binder of fines and letters not to stay angry, but to remember what happens when good people let fear run their lives. If you're still listening, here's what I want you to do. Drop a comment, tell your story, weigh in on justice power, what it means to fight for your peace. Because maybe the rules never really end, maybe Sharon's come and go, but the only way we win is if we finally make noise loud enough to crack the silence. So, what would you have done? Let me know.